The best leaders aren't born. They're chosen for their skill, not their last name. But what if history had stuck to the old way? What if Rome never broke the cycle of incompetent heirs? We're talking about one of the greatest leadership experiments in history, the moment Rome ditched nepotism and picked the best person for the job. This single decision built an empire's golden age, and it might just change how you think about leadership today. In the year 96 CE, the Roman Empire found itself at a critical turning point. The political landscape was shifting, and various factions were vying for power. This period marked the beginning of significant changes that would shape the future of Rome. Emperor Domitian had just met the sharp end of a conspiracy, literally. His reign had been all about control, secret trials, political purges, and a government that operated more like a paranoid crime syndicate than a functioning empire. Sure, he kept the empire running smoothly, military strong, bureaucracy efficient, but when your idea of governance is executing anyone who looks at you funny, you don't tend to make a lot of friends. So, a group of senators and palace officials decided they'd had enough and put an end to his rule the old-fashioned way, with daggers. But this wasn't just about getting rid of a tyrant. This was about Rome changing direction. The Senate, eager to regain some influence, installed Nerva as the new emperor. He was old, wise, and, most importantly, unlikely to start another reign of terror. This moment, while seemingly quiet, set the stage for one of the greatest periods in Roman history, the era of the 5 good emperors. Nerva's reign from 96 to 98 CE was short, but it mattered. He knew Rome needed stability after Domitian's mess, so he focused on making peace. No more paranoid treason trials, exiles were recalled, and relations with the Senate improved. He even introduced financial reforms to help the lower classes. But while the politicians were happy, there was one problem: Rome's elite Praetorian Guard. These guys had been Domitian's personal attack dogs, and they weren't thrilled that their old boss had been assassinated. Nerva, already not a military man, was struggling to keep them in check. So he did something revolutionary. He adopted a strong, respected general as his heir, Trajan. This wasn't just about keeping the peace. This was the moment Rome fully embraced picking rulers based on skill instead of birth. And just like that, the empire was about to hit its golden age. Trajan took over in 98 CE, and Rome never looked back. If Nerva was the wise old man who set things in motion, Trajan was the action hero who took full advantage of it. Under him, Rome reached its greatest territorial extent, stretching from Britain to Mesopotamia. His campaigns in Dacia, modern-day Romania, weren't just about military glory. They filled Rome's coffers with gold. And speaking of money, he didn't hoard it, he spent it wisely. Trajan's Rome was a city of grand projects: roads, aqueducts, public buildings. He even built Trajan's Column, which was basically a 100-foot-tall Instagram story of his greatest battles. He balanced military ambition with good governance, respected the Senate, and ran the empire like a well-oiled machine. His reign was a masterclass in leadership, proving that when you pick the best person for the job, good things happen. Then came Hadrian in 117 CE, and he took one look at Rome's massive borders and said, "Yeah, this is too much." Instead of expanding, he focused on consolidation. His most famous move? Building Hadrian's Wall in Britain to keep out the ever-persistent barbarians. Unlike Trajan, he saw that Rome's resources were stretched thin and decided to strengthen what they already had. Hadrian was also a man of culture, a fan of Greek philosophy, and an emperor who actually traveled around the empire to check in on things personally. His reign was about fine-tuning rather than conquering, proving that sometimes the best leadership isn't about charging forward, but knowing when to hold the line. Antoninus Pius followed in 138 CE, and if Hadrian was the empire's maintenance guy, Antoninus was the calm CEO who kept things running smoothly. His reign was peaceful, stable, and, let's be honest, kind of uneventful. But that was exactly the point. Sometimes the best leadership is knowing when to leave well enough alone. And it worked. His rule lasted until 161 CE, making him one of Rome's longest-serving emperors since Augustus. Then came Marcus Aurelius, the last of the 5 good emperors. If Antoninus had it easy, Marcus got the short end of the imperial stick. His reign was marked by constant wars, Germanic tribes in the north, Persian threats in the east. He spent much of his time on military campaigns, but despite the chaos, he remained one of the most thoughtful leaders Rome had ever seen. His personal writings, meditations, are still studied today, filled with wisdom about leadership, responsibility, and the nature of power. He was a ruler who genuinely cared about justice and virtue, even when Rome was in crisis. But for all his wisdom, he made one major mistake. He let his son Commodus take over. And, well, that didn't go great. Commodus took the throne in 180 CE, and just like that, Rome's golden age came crashing down. Where his predecessors ruled with wisdom and restraint, Commodus treated the empire like his personal playground. He indulged in gladiatorial games, sometimes fighting in the arena himself, not a great look for an emperor, spent recklessly, and ran the government with all the grace of a drunken chariot race. Eventually, Rome had enough, and like Domitian before him, he was assassinated in 192 CE. But this time, instead of ushering in a new golden age, his death threw the empire into chaos, leading to civil war and eventually the crisis of the 3rd century, a time of political instability and economic collapse. The era of the 5 good emperors proved that leadership isn't about inheritance, it's about choosing the right person for the job. When Rome picked emperors based on merit, the empire thrived. When they went back to handing power to spoiled heirs, disaster followed. So what do you think? Is meritocracy always the way to go, or was Rome's golden age just a lucky streak? I'll leave you to discuss in the comments. You can support us by subscribing if you haven't already. Take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones, and I'll catch you soon in another